Welcome to Dreamland, where stories whisper you to sleep. Get cozy, relax, and let the tales begin. First story: The Lion and the Clever Rabbit. In a quiet, sun-dappled forest, where the trees stretched tall and the birds sang soft lullabies, there lived many animals: deer and rabbits, squirrels and peacocks, elephants and birds. They lived together peacefully until one day a new ruler arrived, a lion. He was strong, proud, and fierce. He declared, "I am the king of this forest. All of you belong to me now." From that day forward, the forest was filled with fear. Every morning the lion went hunting, and every evening one of the forest's animals was gone. The animals gathered one night under the great banyan tree, their voices trembling. "This can't go on," whispered a deer. "We must find a way to stop him," said a peacock. "But how do you stop a lion?" asked a small rabbit. Then an old wise elephant spoke. "Let's make a deal. We will send one animal every day to be his meal. In return, he must promise not to hunt." And so, the next morning, the animals approached the lion with their offer. The lion listened, and after a long pause, he agreed. "Fine," he growled. "One animal each day, but if I don't get my meal, I will hunt again." And so it began. Each day, an animal stepped forward, knowing what awaited: a sacrifice to protect the rest. Days passed. Then weeks. And then it was the turn of a rabbit. A small one, soft, quiet, thoughtful. He was not like the others. He didn't run or cry or complain. Instead, he thought. He walked slowly, calmly, arriving very, very late. When he finally reached the lion's den, the sun had nearly set. The lion was furious. "You're late," the lion roared. "I've been waiting all day." The rabbit bowed and spoke gently. "My apologies, great king. I was not alone. There were 5 of us. But on the way, another lion stopped us." The lion narrowed his eyes. "Another lion?" "Yes," said the rabbit, "a lion even bigger than you. He said this forest belongs to him and that you are a fake." The lion's roar shook the trees. "Take me to him, now." The rabbit nodded and led the way through the woods, past streams and thickets, until they reached an old, deep well. "He's inside, my lord," the rabbit whispered, "waiting for you." The lion stepped forward and looked into the well. And there, in the still water, he saw a lion. Strong, proud, angry. The lion bared his teeth. The reflection did the same. He growled. It growled back. Furious, the lion roared and leapt into the well to fight his rival. But there was no rival, only water. The lion splashed and struggled. But it was too late. The forest grew quiet once more, and high above, the little rabbit sat by the edge of the well smiling. He returned to the forest and told the tale. The animals rejoiced. The days of fear were gone. The forest was free again, and the clever little rabbit was remembered for generations to come, not for his size or strength, but for his wisdom and his calm. Next, the bird with 2 heads. In a time long, long ago, far beyond the forests we know, lived a very unusual bird with 2 heads and 1 body. Yes, a single bird, but with 2 minds, 2 mouths, 2 voices. And though they shared a body, they were very different in spirit. One head was wise, kind, thoughtful. The other was jealous, proud, and often angry. They lived near a peaceful lake, where the lotuses bloomed pink and white, and the water reflected the sky like glass. Each morning, the wise head would speak kindly to the animals nearby. He would share fruit with the squirrels and stories with the breeze. But the proud head would scoff and grumble. One day, as they wandered by the edge of the forest, the wise head found a sweet, golden fruit, bright and fragrant. He smiled and said, "This fruit is rare. Let us share it together." But the jealous head turned away. "You always speak as though you are the master. You think you are wiser. Better." The wise head sighed. "I speak only for us. We are one. If you suffer, I suffer too." But pride does not listen easily. Days passed. One afternoon, as they walked near the river, the jealous head spotted a fruit of his own. It was bright, glowing even, but no animal would touch it. A snake slithered past and hissed, "That fruit is poison. Stay away." But the proud head laughed. "If I want to eat it, I will. You're not the boss of me." The wise head begged, "Please, listen. We share the same body. If you eat that poison, you will harm us both." But the jealous head refused to listen. With a smirk, he bit into the fruit. Bitter, cold, strange. And in moments, their body began to tremble. The forest grew silent. The breeze held its breath. The animals watched from afar as the strange bird with two heads slowly fell to the earth. The wise head whispered, "I warned you, but we were always one." And with that, the bird lay still. Later, the animals gathered. The owl spoke softly. "Pride, when not balanced by wisdom, brings ruin, even to those who share the same soul." The wind carried the lesson across the trees, and the river whispered it to the hills. Next, the foolish sage and the jackal. Once, in a quiet village at the edge of a great forest, lived an old sage, a man of peace, prayer, and simplicity. His days were silent. He lived in a small hut made of straw and clay. The birds would sing outside his door. The breeze would dance with the leaves above, and he, each morning, would sit in prayer, eyes closed, heart calm. He had no wealth, no possessions. Only one thing he treasured, a small cloth bag. Inside that bag were coins, offerings from villagers, given in thanks for his blessings. It was not much, just enough for rice, oil, and a little salt. But it was all he had, and so he guarded it carefully. One night, as the stars lit the sky and the moon glowed gently, a jackal wandered into the village, thin, hungry, sharp eyes glowing in the dark. He spotted the sage's hut and crept close. Through the window, he saw the old man, fast asleep, and beside him, the small cloth bag. The jackal's eyes gleamed, but he didn't move yet. Instead, he waited and watched. And then he spoke. "Old man," he whispered the next morning, "I am just a lonely traveler, hungry, weak. Please, let me stay here a while." The sage opened his eyes and smiled. He had no suspicion in his heart. "You may stay," he said. "This hut is small, but peace belongs to all." And so the jackal stayed. Day by day he served the sage. He brought water from the well, gathered sticks for the fire, cleaned the leaves from the doorstep. The sage was pleased. But at night, the jackal's eyes always drifted to that little cloth bag. He told himself, "Just a few more days. I'll earn his trust, and then it will be mine." crescent moon. One evening, the sage went to a nearby village for a festival. He tied the bag of coins to a wooden beam above the door and left. The jackal stayed behind. As soon as darkness fell, he leapt up, untied the bag, and ran into the woods. But something strange happened. The jackal, so full of excitement, ran faster and faster. He didn't see the fallen log ahead. He tripped. The bag flew from his mouth and burst open on the ground. Coins scattered across stones. Some rolled into the river. Others were swallowed by mud. The jackal searched, sniffed, scratched. But most of the coins were gone. And in the silence of the night, the wind whispered, "Greed leaves you emptier than before." Evergreen tree. Meanwhile, the sage returned. He saw the empty beam, the missing jackal, the open door, and he simply sat. He closed his eyes and whispered, "Let it go, for one who steals loses more than gold." From that day, the sage was even more peaceful. He took no more coins. He asked for nothing. Instead, he smiled at every sunrise, welcomed every leaf that fell, and slept without fear. As for the jackal, he wandered from forest to forest, wealthless, restless, never trusted again for what he gained in coins. Ein Speechele, he lost in spirit. Next, the weaver who dreamed of kingship. In a quiet village nestled beside a winding river, lived a weaver, not a rich man, nor a powerful one, just a simple soul who spent his days gently spinning threads into cloth. His hut was humble, his meals were plain, but his heart was full of dreams. Each morning, he watched the birds in the sky, the clouds drifting past the sun, and thought to himself, "If only I were king." One afternoon, as the weaver finished his work, he sat beneath the shade of a large banyan tree. The breeze was cool. The leaves whispered above. He closed his eyes and let his mind wander, and in that half-sleeping place between waking and dreaming, he saw a vision, a chariot of gold descending from the sky. Inside it sat the god of destiny. Calm and radiant, the god spoke, "You are special, weaver. You shall be king." The weaver opened his eyes in awe. The vision was gone, but the feeling remained. His heart raced. His mind echoed, "I am to be king." He stood up, chest proud, and declared aloud, "I shall rule this land. The gods have spoken." And so, he went to the palace. The guards stopped him at the gates. "I have been chosen," he said. "I am to be king." They laughed, but the weaver's eyes burned with belief. His words, oddly confident. The news spread. The people grew curious. Could it be true? Some asked. He speaks like one touched by fate. And in time, the king himself called the weaver forward. The weaver bowed and spoke. "I saw the god of destiny. He told me, 'I am to be king.'" The court fell silent. Some laughed. Some were uneasy. But the king, a man of humor and wit, smiled. "Very well," he said. "You shall rule for one day. Let us see how you carry the crown." The weaver could hardly believe his ears. He was given royal robes, a throne, a crown that glittered in the morning light. All around him, trumpets sounded. Petals were thrown in the air, and the humble weaver now sat where kings sat. He gave orders. He made speeches. He walked through the village like a man reborn. But evening came, and with it, the truth. His day as king was done. The robes were taken back. The throne was passed on, and the weaver returned to his hut. He sat in silence. The stars above blinked quietly. He looked at his loom, his threads, the basket of cloth he once made with pride, and he whispered, "Perhaps I was not meant to rule others, but only myself." From that day forward, he lived more peacefully than before. He still dreamed, but not of thrones or crowns. He dreamed of gentle things, a soft breeze through cotton threads, a kind word spoken by a stranger, a life, quiet, but free. And the village, too, remembered the weaver, not for being king, but for the strange wisdom he carried after the crown. He became a symbol of how even a dream, when it passes, can leave behind peace. Next, the Brahmin and the crooks. Long ago, in a quiet village touched by golden light each morning, there lived a simple Brahmin. He was a man of kindness and routine. Every morning he would wake before the sun, wash by the riverside, and offer prayers beneath a sacred fig tree. He owned very little: a cotton robe, a clay bowl, and a heart full of peace. One bright day, a generous farmer came to the Brahmin after a harvest festival. He said, "Respected sir, you have blessed our fields with your prayers. Please accept this goat as a humble gift." The Brahmin smiled. He was grateful, but also practical. He thought, "This goat can help me. I'll keep it for milk and maybe one day share it with another who needs." And so he tied a rope around the goat's neck gently and began his walk home. As he walked, the sun shone warmly overhead, the trees whispered, and the goat walked quietly beside him. But not far ahead, 3 clever crooks sat beneath a banyan tree. They saw the Brahmin and the goat and whispered among themselves, "Look at that old man. He walks alone with no suspicion." They smiled and hatched a quiet plan. The first crook got up and hurried ahead, pretending to be a traveler. He approached the Brahmin with wide eyes. "Respected sir," he gasped, "why are you carrying a dog on your shoulders?" The Brahmin frowned. "A dog? No, it is a goat, a gift from a kind farmer." The traveler bowed and walked away, but the Brahmin now felt unsure. Did he not see clearly? He wondered. Still, he walked on. A little farther, the second crook came. He bowed deeply. "Oh, holy man, forgive me, but why would you carry a dead calf on your back?" The Brahmin stopped. He looked at the goat. It was the same as before. Calm, quiet. "Are my eyes playing tricks?" he whispered to himself. He began to feel confused, but continued walking. Then, the third crook appeared. "Sir," he exclaimed, "surely carrying a donkey like that is below your status." The Brahmin gasped. His mind spun in circles. 3 strangers, 3 strange claims. All within minutes. He looked at the goat again. His mind, now fogged with doubt, began to betray him. "What if this is a demon?" he thought. "A creature in disguise come to curse me?" In panic, he untied the rope and fled, leaving the goat behind. Crescent moon. The 3 crooks laughed quietly. They took the goat and disappeared into the forest. The Brahmin, still trembling, returned home empty-handed. He sat outside his hut beneath the moon and thought in silence. "I trusted their voices more than my own eyes," he whispered. Rice plant. The next day, he told the story to a wise elder in the village. The elder smiled kindly. "When 3 voices say the same thing, we begin to believe it. But truth is not always in numbers. Sometimes it lives in stillness." The Brahmin closed his eyes. And though he had lost a goat, he had gained something deeper. The beginning of true awareness. Perb. From then on, the Brahmin remained gentle, but not easily swayed. He still gave kindness, still prayed by the river. But now, he listened not only to words, but to silence too, and the forest, and the stars, and even the goat, wherever it may have gone. All whispered the same quiet truth. Stay calm, stay clear. Trust your eyes and your heart. Next, the wise old crane and the mongoose. Once, beside a slow, winding river, stood a tall tree with silver-gray bark. Its branches stretched wide. Its leaves shimmered like tiny bells in the breeze. At the base of this old tree was a hollow in the roots, and within that hollow lived a family of snakes. They slithered in and out silently, harmless if left alone, but feared by all who passed. High above, in the branches of the tree, lived a wise old crane. His feathers had faded to the color of clouds. His wings moved slowly now, but his eyes were calm and clear. He watched the world below without judgment. Near the river, a group of smaller birds had once made their nests, but one spring, their eggs began to vanish. They blamed the snakes. "Old crane," they cried, "you must help us. Those creatures below your tree, they eat our young. They must be removed." But the old crane simply shook his head slowly. "Nature finds balance," he said. "The snakes take some, but they keep the forest in order." The birds grew angry. "You are a coward," they snapped. "You sit in your high branch and do nothing." Still, the crane remained calm. One day, a monkey approached the tree. He had heard the complaints. "Old crane," he said, "why don't you get rid of the snakes? I know a creature who can help you." The crane was curious. The monkey grinned and said, "A mongoose. Fierce. Fast. A true snake killer. Bring one here, and your tree will be safe again." The old crane thought long. He remembered the quiet of the nights, the balance of life, the way one problem solved with violence often creates many more. But the cries of the younger birds were loud, and so he agreed. The monkey helped him find a mongoose. They scattered bits of meat from the river's edge to the roots of the tree, leading it to the snake's den. Soon the mongoose came. It followed the scent, crept into the hollow, and in a flash, the snakes were gone. The birds cheered. The tree shook with celebration. But the crane said nothing. Days passed. The mongoose, now used to easy meals, stayed nearby. When food was scarce, it began to climb higher, and one afternoon, it reached the lowest nests. The old crane watched silently, as feathers fell like leaves, and silence returned to the branches. The mongoose, once called a helper, was now the new danger. The birds cried, "What have we done?" And the crane, with heavy eyes, finally spoke. "You invited fire to chase away shadows, but fire does not choose what it burns." In time, the tree grew quiet. No songs, no nests, only wind, and the old crane remained. Perched on the highest branch, watching, thinking, breathing. He no longer feared the snakes, but he had learned that peace, once disturbed by violence, does not return easily. Now, as the river flows gently past your thoughts, and the leaves of your mind grow still, remember this: sometimes wisdom is knowing when not to act, when to trust stillness over noise, and when to let life flow like the river, unforced and free. Next, the merchant and his foolish son. In a small town where the streets turned golden at sunset, and the temple bells rang softly through the dusk, lived a merchant. He was wise, not because he read many scrolls, but because he listened. He sold grain and cloth, spices and salt, but above all, he traded in peace, speaking calmly, dealing fairly, harming no one. He had one son, young, bright-eyed, but very foolish. The boy had grown up in comfort. He saw the world as simple, fast, easy. He believed wisdom came quickly, and that old people spoke slowly because they had nothing left to say. The merchant, kind and patient, never scolded him. But he watched rice plant. One day, the merchant prepared to leave town for a few days to attend a distant fair. Before leaving, he called his son and said gently, "My son, while I'm gone, take care of the shop, count carefully, speak kindly, trust slowly." The boy nodded proudly. "Don't worry, father. I'll run it even better than you." The merchant smiled, though he said nothing. Crescent moon. On the first day, a clever stranger came to the shop. He wore fine clothes and carried a silver coin. He said, "I wish to buy 1 sack of rice now. I will return with a cart later to take it. Here is 1 silver coin, and I shall pay the rest tomorrow." The boy, eager to show how generous he was, agreed instantly. The man bowed and walked away. But he never returned. That evening, a woman arrived with torn robes. She begged, "Please give me some cloth. I cannot pay now, but I will soon." The boy, feeling proud of his kindness, gave her 2 rolls. She too never came back. By the 3rd day, the shelves were emptier than before. The coin box barely clinked when the merchant returned. He saw the tired look on his son's face and the quiet shop. He asked nothing. He simply sat and lit a lamp, dia lamp. That night, father and son sat by the small fire behind the shop. The boy finally said, "Father, I tried. I trusted. I was generous. But the people lied." The merchant stirred the fire and replied gently, "My son, to be kind is good. To be wise is better. And the best kindness comes with clear eyes." He added, "You thought trust was a shortcut, but trust is built, like the shop, brick by brick." Herb, from that day forward, the boy did not become silent, but he became softer. He listened more, asked questions, and when strangers smiled too widely, he looked into their eyes a little longer. He learned not from books, but from quiet evenings, from burned rice, from wrong change, from empty coin boxes, and in time he became wise, not in years, but in gentleness. The merchant, watching this, said nothing. He simply smiled, because he knew some lessons must be lived, some wisdom must be walked through, and the softest truths arrive not in shouts, but in silence. Now, as your mind softens, as the shop of your thoughts closes for the day, remember, patience is not waiting. It is calm learning. Kindness is not giving. It is understanding. You are learning slowly, gently, just like the merchant's son. Next, the potter and the wise king. Long ago, in a quiet kingdom nestled between 2 rivers, lived a humble potter. He was not famous. He was not rich. But each morning, before the village stirred, he sat at his spinning wheel and shaped clay into bowls, cups, lamps, with care and silence. His hands were rough, but his heart was soft, and the whole village trusted his pots, for they never cracked before their time. One rainy evening, as thunder rumbled over the fields, the potter slipped while carrying a heavy jar. He fell and struck his leg against a stone. He cried out and soon fainted. A kind farmer brought him to the royal palace, as it was the closest place with shelter and medicine. The king's doctor treated the potter's wound, and by morning the potter was well enough to sit up. The king, curious about the guest, came to visit. Seeing the potter's limp and wrapped leg, the king assumed it was a battle injury. "You must have fought bravely," the king said with admiration. The potter, shy and unsure, simply nodded. And from that small nod, a story grew in the king's mind. He thought, this man, a silent warrior, humble, wounded, he must have defended a village, perhaps mine. The king, pleased with the thought, offered the potter a job in the palace, not as a potter, but as a royal guard. The potter tried to explain that he was not a warrior, only a maker of vessels. But the king waved off his words. Humility suits you, he smiled. You shall serve beside my strongest men. And so the potter found himself among swords and armor. He wore a uniform, stood in formation, and tried to look brave. But deep down, he was terrified. He had never held a sword, never fought, never even shouted. One day, news arrived. A nearby kingdom threatened war. The king, loyal to his new guard, said, "My brave friend, you shall lead the defense." The potter froze. That night, beneath a quiet moon, he slipped away and went back to his small clay house on the river's edge. There he lit a lamp and waited. By dawn, the king's men found him. They asked, "Why did you run?" "You were honored." The potter bowed low and said softly, "I am not a warrior. I am a maker of pots. My wound came not from battle, but from a broken jar on a rainy night." He continued, "I was too afraid to correct your praise, but silence has now led me to shame." The king heard his words. He did not grow angry. Instead, he smiled gently. "You spoke the truth at last," he said. "Many pretend to be more than they are, but you pretended to be less, and yet carried a burden too heavy for you." He stepped forward and placed a hand on the potter's shoulder. "Return to your wheel, make your pots. That is your gift. And let no praise take you from your path again." The potter returned home, and for many years, he shaped clay with peace in his hands. He made no more armor, no more false stories, only quiet vessels that held truth. And in that quiet kingdom, the potter became known not for his courage, but for his honesty, a man who knew who he was. Next, the donkey who sang in the moonlight, once upon a time. In a quiet village where the stars shone clearly every night, and the fields glowed under silver moonlight, lived a washerman. He was poor, but peaceful. Every evening, he returned home with bundles of clothes, and beside him walked his faithful donkey. The donkey was strong, but simple. He carried heavy loads by day, and slept under the stars by night, rice plant. Now this donkey had a strange habit. He loved to sing, but not during the day. No, he sang only under the moon. Each time the moon was full, and the fields were silent, the donkey lifted his head, closed his eyes, and sang, not like a bird, not like a flute, but in his own way, loud, strange, and deeply felt. He believed it was beautiful. Full moon. One night, as they walked past a vegetable farm, the donkey said to the dog walking nearby, "Tonight, I shall sing a song of the moon, the stars, and the wind." The dog, wiser and older, replied softly, "My friend, not here. Farmers sleep nearby. Your voice might wake them." But the donkey shook his head proudly. "I cannot hold it in. The moon speaks to me. I must answer." And so, in the stillness of midnight, he sang. He brayed loud and long. His voice echoed across the fields, over pumpkins, tomatoes, melons, and woke the farmer, crescent moon, With a shout and a stick, the farmer rushed out, and before the donkey could finish his moon song, he was chased and struck. He ran, bruised and breathless, until he reached the edge of the forest. There, beneath a tall tamarind tree, he lay down, sore and silent. The dog soon arrived and sat beside him. After a while, the donkey whispered, "I only wished to share my song. Why did it end in pain?" The dog replied gently, "My friend, your heart is kind, but not every song is meant for every place. Even joy must be quiet in a sleeping world." Dove. The donkey closed his eyes. He listened to the leaves rustling softly above, the wind humming through the grass, and he realized there was music all around. From that night on, he still sang, but only in his heart. And under the moon, he would hum, barely audible, just enough for the wind to carry. Rice plant. He still carried clothes, still walked beside the washerman, but now he walked lighter, not with pride, but with peace, because sometimes the deepest songs are heard only in silence. Crescent moon. And now, as you lie still, with your own moon overhead, and stars scattered like glowing seeds, let your breath become soft. Let your thoughts grow quiet. Let your voice rest. You need not sing tonight. The wind sings for you. The earth hums beneath you. You are safe. You are enough. And you are deeply loved. Sleep well, moon dreamer. Sleep long and gently.